Hello everyone, this is JD here. This week we are looking forward to being part of a really exciting event taking place at the Riverside Centre in Newport on Saturday. The event is called I'll Wave and it's aimed at young people in our community who are deaf, hard of hearing or living with sensory loss, and it's a fantastic opportunity for young people to come together, enjoy music and some social time and take part in an inclusive event designed with accessibility in mind. If you know a young person who might enjoy attending, do encourage them to find out more. Next week, I'll be travelling into London to spend some time with Visionary and my leadership cohort. Visionary connects organisations from across the country that support blind and partially sighted people, so it's always a valuable opportunity to share ideas, learn from others working in our sector. And because of that, means I will not be around as much next week, but really do look forward to catching up with many of you again when I'm back. Also, we do have our lovely knitted Easter chicks out and about across the community, and they really do look fantastic this year. So a huge thank you to everyone. If you happen to come across them on your travels, they are currently available at Gurnard Press, Tandem Tea Rooms and Brightstone Shop as well. And as always, if there's anything happening in the community that you'd like us to mention or talk about, please do get in touch and let us know. But until then, hope you all have a lovely week.
Here is this week's charity news for a week beginning the 13th of March. Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15 p.m. and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
Coffee and Chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 o'clock until 11:30. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Eye on Social on Wednesday, the 18th of March, when a speaker from the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance will be joining us to talk about the wonderful work they do across our region. This group is open to everyone, so please bring along a friend or family member. The cost is £3 to include tea and cake.
Mix and Mingle is on Thursday at Millbrook House. This group enjoys crafts, quizzes and entertainment. If you would like to put your name down on the list, please call the office.
On Friday, we are taking our book donations to Tesco in Ryde for a 2-week period. Would like preferably paperback and children's book. Please ask family and friends if they have any that they are willing to donate to us. This is a great fundraiser for us and appreciate any donations given.
Our Easter knitted novelties are now on sale here at Millbrook House, Gurnard Press, the Crown Inn Shorewell, Bryston Stores, Tandem Tea Rooms and the Tide Mill, formerly the Sloop. We are asking for a donation of £2.50 for our small Cadbury egg novelties, which are gift-bagged individually. We also have a limited amount of chocolate orange Easter novelties for a donation of £4.
Recycle your bra and raise funds for Sight for Wight. We will be placing recycling boxes in Millbrook House and Dress for Less. Place all unwanted bras in the bin and in return we will be raising funds for the charity. Simple.
We are always very grateful for book donations. Our bookstall at Tesco Freshwater is very successful, and we have a 2-week period at the Ryde Tesco's shortly, and therefore would like preferably paperback and children's books. Please ask family and friends if they have any that they are willing to donate to us.
We have a spare room become available for the upcoming Warner's trip in April. It is a twin double room and the cost is £125 per person for a 2-night stay at Norton Grange, Yarmouth. If you are interested, please call the office for more details.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo with the headline, Islanders feeling the pinch as prices at the pumps rise yet again. Motorists on the Isle of Wight are facing rising fuel prices as disruption to a key global oil shipping route drives wholesale costs higher. Pump costs are rising due to wholesale oil prices driven by geopolitical tensions in the Middle East and shipping disruptions through the Strait of Hormuz, a major global oil route. To keep track of prices at fuel stations across the island, visit the website findcheapfuel.com. That's all one word. Speaking about the increase, the RAC head of policy said, if oil were to settle at around the $90 a barrel mark and the pound were to maintain its current position against the US dollar, drivers in the UK could expect average petrol prices to reach around 140 pence a litre and diesel around 167 pence a litre. We urge drivers to shop around and make use of free apps such as My RAC to ensure they never pay any more for fuel than they need to.
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. A butterfly, once officially classified as extinct in the UK, has been spotted on the Isle of Wight, according to conservationists. The large tortoise-shell butterfly has recently been seen at sites across southern England, including the Isle of Wight, as well as Hampshire, Sussex, Kent, Dorset and Cornwall. The sightings have prompted butterfly conservation to declare the species a resident breeding butterfly in the UK once again, rather than simply a migratory visitor. The butterfly was once widespread across England and Wales, but had not been recorded breeding in Britain since the 1980s. Experts say the decline was largely linked to the spread of Dutch elm disease during the 20th century, which devastated elm trees where the butterflies lay their eggs. Although there have been occasional sightings since the species was declared extinct in Britain, reports have become increasingly common in recent weeks, with around 20 recorded across southern England. Professor Richard Fox, head of science at Butterfly Conservation, said the reason for the butterfly's disappearance from Britain is still unclear. He believes changing climate conditions may now be helping the species expand its range across Europe, allowing it to return to places such as the Isle of Wight. The conservation charity says the sightings are encouraging news at a time when many butterfly species across the UK are in decline.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio with the headline, New paramedics join Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance team. A group of paramedics has joined Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance, strengthening the charity's ability to deliver specialist pre-hospital emergency care across the region. Working alongside pilots, dispatchers and doctors, the charity's advanced paramedics respond to critically ill and seriously injured patients 365 days a year, both on board the helicopter and as part of the critical care paramedic response car. Crews are most frequently called to incidents such as cardiac arrests, road traffic collisions, and other life-threatening emergencies. The latest intake includes 2 experienced road paramedics and 2 secondee paramedics beginning their advanced training, with a further 4 highly qualified critical care paramedics set to join later this year. Together, the new recruits bring a mix of experience and fresh expertise, helping strengthen the service while also investing in the future of critical care across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Paramedics joining the charity will complete a structured advanced paramedic critical care training pathway, developing specialist skills in areas such as trauma care, sedation, aviation medicine and complex decision-making in emergency situations. One of the new recruits, Robin Painting, who qualified as a paramedic in 2019, said, "I have always loved being a paramedic and find it most rewarding treating time-critical patients, which is what drew me to joining Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance. Training to become a critical care paramedic will undoubtedly be challenging. There is so much to learn, from advanced clinical skills to aviation. However, I'm excited by the opportunity to challenge myself. I'm really looking forward to the professional development opportunities and to learn alongside such a skilled and highly motivated team. Getting to fly in a helicopter is an added perk of the role." The charity is currently raising funds to relocate its operating base from Thruxton to Southampton Airport. So far, £2.7 million has been raised towards a £3.6 million target, with the service hoping to begin operating from the new base in spring 2026. Nick Gray said, "This is an incredibly exciting and important time in the charity's history. Our airbase relocation and recent paramedic recruitment underscore our continued commitment to growing our service and achieving the best possible outcomes for every critically ill and seriously injured patient across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. We're extremely grateful to everyone in our community whose support funds training, equipment and the operational readiness of the service." Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance was recently rated outstanding following an inspection by the Care Quality Commission.
This is Den reading an article from the Island Echo. Murder at the Fort afternoon tea experience returns to Bembridge Fort. An immersive 1940s themed murder mystery afternoon tea experience is set to take place at Bembridge Fort, offering guests an interactive theatrical event inside one of the island's most historic venues. Murder at the Fort, exclusive vintage afternoon tea experience, will be held on Saturday the 4th of April and Saturday the 27th of June 2026. There are 2 sittings available on each date at 1500 hours and 1900 hours. The event is produced by award-winning company Interrupt the Routine and combines live performance with puzzles, clues and suspect interactions, challenging guests to solve a mystery while enjoying a traditional vintage afternoon tea. Catering is provided by Crumb Pact, with themed cocktails and mocktails available from IOW Cocktails Company. Tickets are priced at £49.50 per person. Doors open 30 minutes before each performance. A free parking is available outside the fort walls. The experience is not suitable for under 16s. Visitors are advised that the venue includes some dark areas, underground tunnels, and may feature loud noises and lighting effects as part of the production. Full details and booking information can be found at www.thepriceswight.co.uk.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Lynn
and Gerard.
Fast cat disruption means no wheelchairs or prams. Engineering works at Portsmouth Harbour's Wight Link Fast Cat ferryport will cause disruption for passengers, particularly those who rely on step-free access later this month. From Wednesday, March the 18th until Monday, March the 30th, all Fast Cat services will move from the North End berth to the South End at Portsmouth Harbour, while crews replace berth piles and renew the wires that operate the gangway. A revised timetable will run throughout the period. The temporary layout will have the biggest impact on islanders who depend on accessible travel. The South End gangway is steeper and narrower than the standard route, meaning Wight Link will be unable to take those who use wheelchairs or mobility scooters on the Fastcat for the duration of the work. This will affect hundreds of commuters, students and hospital-bound travellers who routinely use the 22-minute crossing as the quickest link between Ryde Pier Head and the mainland. A Wight Link spokesperson said the repairs were unavoidable but are timed to minimise disruption, adding that accessibility groups had been informed in advance. Passengers who require step-free boarding are being advised to divert to the Portsmouth Fishbourne car ferry, where staff are trained to assist those who use wheelchairs and mobility scooters, or go to Hover Travel, which will accept all Wight Link tickets during the works. Wight Link's assisted travel phone line will be there to help on 0800 093 8236. Other restrictions will also be in place. Pushchairs and prams will still be allowed, but may need to be folded and carried on the steeper gangway with staff available to help. Bikes will only be permitted if they can be folded and carried, while cyclists with standard bicycles are being directed to the car ferry or Hover Travel as an alternative. Toilet facilities aboard the Fastcat will remain closed except for emergencies or medical reasons, although terminal facilities at both Portsmouth Harbour and Ryde Pier Head will stay open as usual. Boarding arrangements at Ryde Pier Head will not change. Wight Link said it recognised the inconvenience to islanders and apologised for the disruption. A spokesperson added, "These essential repairs will enhance the reliability of the service going forward, and we're grateful for our customers' patience while the work is carried out."
New task force will target dangerous drivers and roads. One death on our roads is one too many, said Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones, as a new roads policing task force is launched to target the Isle of Wight and Hampshire most dangerous routes and highest risk drivers. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary has created a dedicated roads policing tasking team to clamp down on motorists committing the so-called fatal 5 offences, the behaviours most commonly linked to death and life-changing injuries. Police say the new team will have a significant presence on the Isle of Wight, where rural roads, speeding and the poor attention of drivers continue to feature heavily in serious local collisions. The fatal 5 now includes careless or inconsiderate driving, recently added to the existing 4 of speeding, impairment through drinks or drugs, distraction, including mobile phone use, and failing to wear a seatbelt. The shift brings the force in line with other police services around the country. Officers will be deployed to collision hotspots across the island and Hampshire with unmarked vehicles used to catch high-risk drivers. The team can also support wider policing operations, targeting criminals who use vehicles to commit other offences. Sergeant Stephen Phillips, who will lead the new unit, said too many families had already suffered due to reckless behaviour behind the wheel. People in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight deserve to feel safe on their roads, he said. Too many lives have been shattered by dangerous and careless drivers. If you are speeding, drink or drug driving, using your phone or putting others at risk with careless or inconsiderate driving, understand this. We will find you and we will stop you. We will not hesitate to take dangerous drivers off the road. He also warned the team will be proactive and relentless, adding, We could be anywhere in unmarked car. Don't take the risk. Donna Jones said, younger and older drivers are particularly at risk. One person's actions behind the wheel can have a devastating impact in a split second. Solar-powered post boxes of the future to be installed. Solar-powered post boxes of the future are to be rolled out across parts of the island. A number of current post boxes have been deemed out of service and have been taped off, including on Union Street Ride and by Osborne House in Escouts. Signs attached to them read, "Sorry, this post box is currently out of service. Post box of the future are coming soon." Royal Mail revealed in August it was introducing 3,500 new post boxes across the country. A trial of the new post boxes took place in Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire last year. Once installed, islanders will be able to scan a barcode on the Royal Mail app, opening a solar-powered drawer on the post box. This will then allow them to post parcels, which are usually too big for the traditional slot. Royal Mail has said parcels as big as a shoebox should be able to fit, while proof and tracking is available through the app. There will also be a separate slot for letters. Royal Mail said it is sending and returning more parcels than ever before, and this is by far the most convenient solution. Royal Mail has yet to publish a full list of locations for the island, or revealed when they will be arriving.
Main traffic route due for 14 months of disruptions. Drivers are being warned of around 14 months of disruption on a main route between Ryde and Newport. A major scheme to replace gas mains in and around Binstead Road starts next week and will coincide with Island Roads works. Phase 1, between March the 16th for around 4 weeks. Southern Gas Networks, SGN, will be working on the road between the junctions of Spencer Road and Thornborough Close. Temporary traffic lights will be in place. Phase 2, between Monday, April the 13th for around 2 weeks. Binstead Road will be closed in its entirety. Island Roads will return to complete highway improvement work between Stone Pits Close and Gwydir Close. Meanwhile, SGN will be working between the junctions of Spencer Road and Stone Pits Close. Island Road said buses can use the Binstead estate to bypass the work. However, as the estate roads are not designed for large volumes of traffic, motorists are advised to use the official diversion. Phase 3, between Monday, April the 27th to Friday, May the 29th. Temporary three-way traffic lights will be in place again. SGN will work between the junctions of Stone Pits Close and the roundabout with Ringwood Road. Phase 4, between Monday the 25th of May to Friday, October the 9th. SGN will work in Church Road, Pitts Lane, Quor Road and the Old Rectory. Phased road closures will be in place. And Phase 5, between Monday, October the 19th to Friday, December the 18th. SGN will focus on Binstead Hill, between the junctions of Chapel Road and the roundabout with Ringwood Road. Temporary three-way traffic lights will be in place. Following the conclusion of this phase, works will be suspended for Christmas. Phase 6, between Monday, January the 4th to Tuesday, May the 25th, 2027. SGN will be working on Queen's Road, Ringwood Road, Thornborough Close and Westwood Road. Road users will use give and take around the work areas. Susan Day of SGN said, "We appreciate roadworks can be frustrating. However, the new plastic pipe has a minimum lifespan of 80 years. An Island Road spokesperson said, "We are very aware that residents and road users have been living with roadworks between Wootton and Binstead for a number of weeks, and we would like to thank them for their support and understanding."
Woman fined just £2 under Victorian law for abusive outburst. A woman who launched into an abusive outburst inside Newport Police Station has been fined just £2 after magistrates were forced to sentence her under a Victorian-era law which is still in force nearly 2 centuries later. Claire Phipps of Monkton Street Ride appeared before the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Tuesday the 10th of March. The 57-year-old admitted the charge of indecent behaviour at a police station in Newport on the 27th of January. The court heard Phipps had attended Newport Police Station and spoke to an officer, but Phipps quickly became disruptive and abusive. Giles Fletcher, prosecuting, said she approached an officer at the front counter but repeatedly talked over him, had shouted, swore, and was generally rude and verbally abusive. He was trying to be polite. He was trying to listen. But she kept on talking over him and was rude and abusive towards him, Mr. Fletcher said. Other members of the public were in the station's front office at the time and witnessed the behavior. The offence is covered by legislation dating back to 1847, which still carries a maximum penalty of a 40 shillings fine. Magistrates were told Phipps had already been convicted of the same offence twice last year, and in April last year. She was fined £500 and made subject to a 2-year restraining order for 2 counts of harassment without violence. Cost £50, surcharge £100, fine £500, 2-year restraining order. Nick Muir, defending, said Phipps had gone to the police station to demand the return of her mobile phone, which she claimed had been held by officers for around 3 months. He told the court she became frustrated and used the encounter to voice wider complaints. He added she accepted she had been rude, confrontational, and had lost her temper. Throughout the hearing, Phipps giggled loudly whenever the possibility of a 40 shillings fine was mentioned. Sentencing her, presiding magistrate Michael Hayward said, "It is an offence dating back almost 200 years, so we have no option in how we deal with you." Phipps was fined £2, the modern equivalent of 40 shillings, and ordered to pay £85 cost. Magistrates waived an 80p victim surcharge, in line with the unusually low level of the fine.
Works halted due to rare bird nesting. A local ecologist was shocked when a water rail, a wetland bird rarely seen nesting in Ventnor's Undercliff, had its newly built nest destroyed. Ground maintenance contractors John O'Connor, who were carrying out pruning work at the town's Cascade waterfall attraction, are alleged to have caused damage to the nests while cutting back a lot of vegetation, according to Ventnor ecologist Steve Jones. The company, which started the work on Wednesday, 4th of March, refutes any intention to disturb wildlife and any suggestion of reckless behaviour. The incident prompted an urgent intervention from Steve, who stepped in to ensure work was halted last Thursday, March the 5th, alleging the destruction of nests had broken wildlife protection laws. Steve, who has surveyed birds in Ventnor for more than 30 years, said the contractors had already completed winter cutting, but returned to carry out more work at a time when birds had started nesting. He said that nests that were practically built were destroyed, including the first known nesting attempt by a water rail in the Undercliff. Steve urgently contacted Ventnor Town Council, telling them the work needed to stop immediately. Deputy Mayor Councillor Stephen Toogood acted swiftly, instructing the contractors to stop. Steve said whether there were any chicks or eggs in the nests, nobody knows. As well as the water rail, the celebrity everyone wanted to see, there were 2 pairs of robins, a wren and a dunnock, with a grey wagtail pair also disturbed, although their nest wasn't harmed. Steve, a qualified member of the Chartered Institute of Ecology and Environmental Management, said, "The kind of work they were doing shouldn't be done from March the 1st onwards along the milder Undercliff, because birds start nesting there earlier. The Wildlife and Countryside Act states that it is illegal to disturb active birds' nests, including those under construction." Steve said the water rail briefly vanished, but has since reappeared and is expected to attempt nesting again. In a joint statement, John O'Connor, Grounds Maintenance Limited, and Ventnor Town Council said they were aware of the allegations. At the time the works were instructed and commenced, no information had been provided to John O'Connor to indicate that the area was being used as an active nesting site, nor were any special ecological conditions or restrictions communicated in relation to nesting birds at that location. As is standard practice for horticultural operations at this time of the year, operatives undertook visual checks for nesting birds and other environmental constraints prior to and during the works. When concerns were raised regarding the possible presence of nesting birds, the team paused works while the matter was reviewed with representatives from the Town Council. Both Ventnor Town Council and John O'Connor take their legal and environmental responsibilities extremely seriously, including compliance with Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. There was no intention to disturb wildlife, and any suggestion of deliberate or reckless behaviour is not accepted. Ventnor Town Council and John O'Connor are working together to review the events to establish the full circumstances, including communication processes, to ensure any additional ecological information is clearly identified and shared in advance of future works where required. Read the full statement at county-press.co.uk.
Scheme aiming to boost safety of road workers. A new partnership is aiming to protect the safety of road workers on the Isle of Wight. The Island Roads Safety Group, IRSG, brings together Isle of Wight Council, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police and Island Roads. The group will promote safer behaviour around highway works and remind motorists of the importance of following temporary traffic management measures. Steve Ashman, Service Director at Island Roads, said, "Our staff are frequently abused while on sites. That is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Our staff are there to improve the highway network and to keep road users safe. We appreciate that there is currently a lot of road work activity on the island, and we understand temporary traffic lights and diversions can cause inconvenience and frustration. But it is never okay to take that frustration out on staff who are also island residents and members of the local community and are simply doing their job. The group will explore further ways to reduce antisocial behavior towards workers and raise awareness that temporary traffic management is legally enforceable and designed to protect both road users and staff. The new partnership was launched at Horsebridge Hill, the site of current major works. During another project last year at the same location, the police successfully took action against motorists who ignored temporary traffic management measures in place. Last summer, a police operation at the site during private developer works led to action against 184 motorists. Similar enforcement campaigns remain an option elsewhere. Island Roads also deploys mobile CCTV at problematic sites, and staff can use body-worn cameras where necessary. Michelle Love, Service Director for Highways and Community Protection at Wight Council, said, "We would all rather avoid the need for enforcement. But it is vital that road users respect highway workers and do not put their own safety or anyone else's safety at risk by ignoring temporary traffic management."
The King is full of praise for an inspiring young carer. A young carer from the island got the chance to meet the King, Queen and Prime Minister at Windsor Castle. Elliot Vince, 17, from Newport, went along to highlight the work of paid and unpaid carers across the UK. Elliot, who cares for his mum, represented Barnardo's Isle of Wight Young Carers Service at the event last month, in February, alongside Jodie Woodhouse, a project worker for the Children's Charity Service. Both chatted with King Charles and Queen Camilla, as well as Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. Elliot said he felt privileged and honoured to have attended. "I was definitely nervous when I first arrived at Windsor Castle. It felt so surreal, and it was strange being so formal and seeing so many important people in one place. I had the chance to talk with Keir Starmer, who asked me the one thing I'd like him to fix. I thought for a second and explained that the long waiting lists for mental health services really need sorting. He agreed and said it shouldn't get to a point where it's too late to get help. On speaking to His Majesty, he said, "I felt very honoured that the King wanted to hear about me and why I was there. I explained who I cared for, and he told me he's very proud of the hard work I'm doing. It was really inspiring to have my voice heard and to be recognised in that way." Last summer, Elliot spoke at Barnardo's annual reception in Parliament to highlight the impact that Barnardo's Isle of Wight Young Carers Service and local family hub have on his life. He said, "During darker times I felt lost and that I didn't have a safe place to talk about what I was going through. I didn't go out and have fun and just be a child. Barnardo's Isle of Wight Young Carers gave me that safe place. It's a family away from home, where I'm not the one caring for the other people, but they're caring for me. Barnardo's Isle of Wight Young Carers Service supports children and young people who help to care for a household family member for reasons such as disability or long-term illness." Laura Groves, Children's Services Manager for Barnardo's Isle of Wight Family Centres, said, "Young carers can often be hidden from many support services, so we were delighted that Elliot had the opportunity to share his own experiences of being a young carer with the King, the Queen and Prime Minister, and highlight the importance of providing support to the children and young people who need it most. Laura thanked the many organisations which donate to the service.
Hospital order for men who set fire to house. An arsonist who set fire to a house belonging to the Mencap charity has been told to stay at a mental health facility in Oxford. Damon Wilkins of No Fix Abode appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court via video link on Tuesday, March the 10th. The 27-year-old previously pleaded guilty to arson with intent to endanger life, possession of a bladed article, and assault on an emergency worker. Prosecutor Casey Chard said emergency services were alerted at 12:30 a.m. on the 20th of September 2024 after members of the public reported large banging and fire alarms coming from a Mencap property on Bettersworth Road in Ryde. Fire crews from Ryde and Newport attended and found smoke and flames coming from near of the building. Shortly after 1:15 a.m., Wilkins called police from Ryde Beach and admitted to setting fire to the property, where he had been living at the time. He also told officers he was in possession of a 12-inch knife and intended to harm himself. While in custody, Wilkins lashed out at a police officer who described being the victim of a donkey kick. A fire investigation concluded Wilkins had set his trousers alight and left them in the kitchen, allowing the flames to spread. The court heard Wilkins had 8 previous convictions for 14 offences, including multiple assaults on emergency workers. Defending, Jim Osborne said his client suffers from severe mental health difficulties and should remain in hospital for further treatment before being released into the community with appropriate support. 4 psychiatric reports were prepared ahead of sentencing. The court was told Wilkins had been in custody for almost a year and was only transferred to a mental health facility in January 2026, despite an interim hospital order being made before Christmas. Recorder Bryant Fitzherbert said he accepted the conclusions of the psychiatric experts, describing Wilkins as someone unable to control his impulses and whose actions lack deliberate malice. Handing down a Section 38 hospital order, a court-ordered detention for assessment and treatment in a psychiatric hospital, Recorder Fitzherbert told Wilkins, "It is not a punishment. It is for your own well-being and for the public."
Broadcast date for The Apprentice. The air date for the Isle of Wight's episode of hit BBC show The Apprentice has been revealed. As reported by the county press last month, cast and crew made their way to the island for filming around 10 months ago. Not much was revealed about the episode, other than that contestants tackled the discount buying task. More details have now been revealed, though. The synopsis reads, "The candidates are off to the Isle of Wight to find 9 items associated with the area, and the team that spends the least money on the correct items wins." Following a dismal performance on the same task in Hong Kong, it's a chance for the candidates to redeem themselves. A mad dash to the finish ensures a tight race, and Lord Sugar bids farewell to another candidate. While on the island, the production company worked with Visit Isle of Wight and a number of island businesses during filming, including the Royal Hotel at Ventnor. Lord Sugar's aides, Karen Brady and Tim Campbell, both stayed at the hotel. The island episode, part of season 20, is due to air on BBC One at 9 o'clock on Thursday, March the 19th.
Asylum hotels and ferries discussed in Farage visit. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage spoke on a range of topics when he met the media before a rally to gather support for his party ahead of the May local elections. He spent time with reporters ahead of his appearance at Gigi's Bars in Wootton, including the County Press. In a letter sent to the island electorate, Mr. Farage claimed thousands of illegal immigrants are housed in hotels in your community at your expense, despite the latest Home Office data showing no asylum seekers are in hotels here. When asked about it, he said, "I know there is a load in Portsmouth. I don't know the numbers here." He told the County Press, "I'll have a bet with you. I'll have £100 with you that within 18 months there are illegal immigrants being housed on the island because we are running out of space everywhere else." About his promotional material, he said, "It is a generic letter that's gone out to millions of people on big national issues of importance." On Isle of Wight issues, Mr. Farage labelled the Solent as a very expensive bit of water, but said the only answer was to make the island a more attractive destination. He said the ferry debate is exactly the same as the railways, and expressed skepticism over a public ownership model. Mr. Farage said, "The trouble is that one model and the alternative is that effectively the government runs it and generally makes an even bigger mess of it." I mean, this gets to the railways debate as well, does not it? It's exactly the same debate. There is no perfect answer. But the island needs more tourists and more visitors. The Reform UK leader expressed surprise over three-figure ferry costs. He said, "Coastal communities are the real left behinds." Mr. Farage said, "I would love to see an island here that maybe was a bit more relaxed on planning. Maybe if that could be streamlined a little bit, you might start to become more attractive. That's what would give the island a competitive edge." Mr. Farage visited the Isle of Wight College CE Camp Centre, met some of the team from the Isle of Wight Chamber of Commerce who discussed economic growth, challenges and skills plans, and went to the lifeboat in Easthouse before the event at Gigi's.
An unstable wall is getting worse. A deteriorating retaining wall is expected to remain cordoned off for the foreseeable future as the Isle of Wight Council struggles to trace its owner. Building inspectors have examined the wall on Madeira Road, Ventnor, several times since October after concerns were raised by members of the public. Although the structure is not considered to be at imminent risk of collapse, the council says, its condition has worsened, with debris falling onto the pavement below. As a precaution, part of the footway has been closed to minimise the risk to pedestrians. The council says it has contacted the person believed to be the landowner on a number of occasions, but has so far received no response. It is now exploring other ways of confirming who the owner is and how to reach them, and is appealing for the public's help to track down the owner. Because the wall adjoins the highway, building control officers can treat it as a dangerous structure if it is judged unstable, allowing temporary barriers or footpath closures while any required remedial works are assessed and agreed. The council is urging anyone who knows the identity of the landowner or how to contact them to email building.control@iow.gov.uk.
And now part 2, Wight Memories and Nostalgia. 125 years ago, in March 1901, the majority of ratepayers who assembled at a meeting at Shanklin Institute agreed the town should be lit by electricity. Islanders were stunned after a former Roman Catholic Church priest was charged with shooting with intent to murder. Victor Michael Ruthven was accused of shooting William Woodham, a fishmonger's assistant, during a disturbance at one of his lectures on the confessional. A sport report stated how the island foxhound had some grand sport in the district, with as many as 7 foxes being found.
100 years ago, in March 1926, visitors to Carisbrooke Castle could see archaeologists in action when they began excavating a wall in the grounds of the castle. An island householder wrote to the county press to express his dismay at the increased price of bread. He believed that 10p, which is 4p, for a loaf of bread was extortionate, considering the low cost of flour.
75 years ago, in March 1951, the island's oldest resident, Harriet Marvin of Gurnard, celebrated her 104th birthday. Due to the increased cost in running a motor, a ride baker decided to revert to a trusty horse and cart to deliver his goods. Children from Wootton Primary School planted trees on the extreme boundaries of the parish. The weeping willow on the Ryde boundary and the weeping ash on the Newport boundary were planted to commemorate the Festival of Britain. The Isle of Wight Technical College was officially opened. A public meeting held at Wootton demanded urgent action regarding the increased volume of motor traffic driving through the village.
50 years ago, in March 1976, heavyweight boxing champion Henry Cooper appeared at Newport to officially open a new heavy building materials centre at UBM Dibben. Staff at St Mary's Hospital celebrated the birth of the last baby to be delivered in the old maternity wing of the hospital. Carol Carpenter of Station Gardens, Brading, was presented with a complete set of Royal Dalton nursery wear following the birth of her son Daniel. Police were investigating a smoke bomb hoax which caused Newport Guildhall to be evacuated, and a number of Sandown residents demanded action over a section of pavement in Avenue Road which they insisted was so narrow they could not open an umbrella. An unexploded bomb in the 1970s. Who knows what we were doing in March 1976, 50 years ago this week? Well, the county press does. Here we look back at the March the 13th issue. What we did that week lives on forever in the county press online archive. So what was happening that week? Well, one thing we don't hear much of today was an unexploded bomb. One turned up that week much to the surprise of an unsuspecting digger driver working at Bembridge Farm. He gingerly left his cab to ring the bomb disposal squad at Salisbury, who nipped over and defused it later that day. There was one thing which unfortunately we still hear of today. The county press reported the new floating bridge at Cowes, which broke down last month, soon after being brought into service, is now to undergo trials on its chains. Well, well, well. And then, under the heading Correction, we read Mr. John Bedford of Mayfield Drive, Newport, wishes to point out that he did not have both his feet on the windowsill in St James's Street, Newport, as was stated in a magistrate's court report in our March the 6th issue. Well, a quick look at the courts column in the previous issue, which should clarify things, isn't really much help. Mr. Bedford had been charged with being drunk and disorderly in St James's Street at 11:20 p.m. one night. P.C. Anderson told the court that Bedford, drinking from a tin of lager, appeared to be trying to climb up a window. He told the court he was leaning against the window, taking the weight off his ankle, which he had hurt, falling off his shoe.
At the time, he was wearing shoes with 3-inch heels. At Studio One Newport, cinema goers could see Sean Connery as the man who would be king. Or at the Savoy, it was Up Pompeii. Ride punters, meanwhile, could sit back and enjoy Anita with Christina Lindbergh, who, followed by Sex Express. Anita, we were informed by the county press, was the story of a 16-year-old nymphomaniac whose activities are a protest against her parents and society in general. A psychology student reads her of her compulsion for debauchery. Sex Express also got a good going over. A beautiful young girl on a train indulges in fantasies triggered by incidents on the journey. Even the bird kingdom was at it. In the livestock column, Cows 4964 announced 5 handsome frustrated ganders seek attractive geese, any for sale or swap. Over at Totland, the WI had met. About 40 members heard a talk entitled It Would Not Be Funny in China. Various amusing stories illustrated that would be funny in the West, would not be appreciated in China, and Mrs. M. Ackland won the competition, which was for a limerick on a pancake.
If you lived in Furlongs, the boys in blue may have been watching you. Under the headline, Fined £10, we learn that Colin Harlow of Furlongs, Newport, pleaded guilty to using a motor vehicle with the rear near side tyre not conforming to regulations. And in the next case, William Eldridge of Furlongs, Newport, pleaded guilty to using a motor vehicle with rear offside tyre not conforming to regulations in the High Street, Newport, fined £10. A Pi 26-inch colour TV was advertised for sale for £312. In the same issue, Cowes shipbuilder J.S. Wights were offering skilled turners £56 a week. Gay Steedman, now Gay Baldwin of Ghost Books fame, wrote an inspired weekly column mainly for women. The previous week's column had dealt with the Isle of Wight dialect, prompting Miss Dorothy Cotton of Poole Cottage, Bryston, to write, "My late father pronounced all the words mentioned in the way described."
Seeing them in print brought back many more words, seldom, if ever, heard now. A stormy, wet night was a screw night. A fretful, complaining child was a Kinian child, and an awkward person was a lorop. And anything which was crooked, such as a picture on the wall, was to my mother all 9 bob square. Finally, Shoeage raised its ugly head. The county press reported more blocks of flats, houses, and hotels all put extra strain on sewage disposal, agreed South Wight Council's planning committee. At a previous meeting, planners turned down permission for development at Mary Gardens Lake, following advice from the Southern Water Authority that the sewage treatment works were overloaded and could not deal with extra effluent. What Basil Fawlty might well have described as the bleeding obvious.
The news from County Hall from Councillor Phil Jordan, leader of the Isle of Wight Council. Over the past weeks, I've heard from residents concerned about claims circulating in the press, on social media and in some campaign leaflets about the council's finances, council tax and the services we provide. Some of this has appeared around the visit to the island this week by Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. That visit has generated plenty of attention, but it has also coincided with statements that misrepresent the facts and how local government works. Healthy democracy depends on open and honest debate. It is normal for people to disagree about priorities, spending or policy. That is part of local politics. The difficulty comes when debate moves away from disagreement into misinformation, mistruths and distortion. Sometimes that misinformation is a clear lie. More often, though, it comes in a more subtle form, a distortion of the truth. That might mean quoting a single financial figure without the full context, ignoring the legal responsibilities councils have, or suggesting that money can simply be moved from one service to another. For example, although the misinformation was not published by the Isle of Wight Observer, Nigel put out a statement saying Isle of Wight Council loan debt had increased to 136 million since 2021. That is untrue and a distortion of the facts. The truth is that overall debt has reduced by 60 million since 2021. And local authorities can't ignore certain responsibilities. Services such as adult social care, children's services, housing provision, and services and waste collection are statutory. Councils are required by law to provide them. So when residents see claims suggesting councils are choosing to prioritise the wrong things, it's worth asking whether the full picture has been explained, whether residents are being misinformed, whether you are reading the facts. The same is true when people talk about council tax or the council's overall finances. The reality is often far more complicated than a headline or a social media post might suggest. Council budgets are set through detailed public reports, debated in open meetings and scrutinised by elected councillors from across the political spectrum. But I do think it's fair to ask whether residents are concerned about misinformation, and if so, how people can easily find the facts. My advice is simple: go to the original sources where possible. Council reports, audit committee papers, budget papers and meeting recordings are all available to the public. Local journalists also play an important role in checking claims and asking difficult questions. National politics will always influence local debate, and parties often use national figures and campaigns to support their message during local elections. But decisions that affect our communities, schools, roads, housing, social care and local services deserve factual evaluation, accurate discussion based on the facts, local facts, true facts, island facts. Our residents deserve better than slogans and half-truths, misinformation and distortions of the truth. They deserve clear information, open debate and local politics that treats our local community and local residents with honesty and respect, led by local people with the island in their hearts and minds.
Richard Quigley, MP for Isle of Wight West, share his views. Your chance to get your views on SEND, Special Educational Needs and disabilities. I am incredibly proud to represent the Isle of Wight in Parliament. As soon as people learn that I live on the island, they automatically want to chat. Sometimes it's to share their childhood memories of a school trip or family holiday. The festival usually gets a mention, along with Osborne House, but almost everyone talks about there being a greater sense of community on the island, something we should all be proud of. What strikes me, though, is there is all too often a lack of awareness of our innovation and industry. That lack of awareness is unfortunately something that extends to plenty of young people on the island, and it masks a wealth of opportunities and careers available to them. It's something I want to change, and we can change as a community. As a coastal MP, I am acutely aware of the growing coastal education attainment gap. 1 in 3 island children leave school unable to read at the expected level, and we now have the second highest level of education deprivation in the South. We know targeted intervention works. The London Challenge, launched in 2003, transformed London's school, for some of the poorest performing to the best in the UK by 2010. The government has committed to delivering a new coastal challenge modelled on that success. This is a welcome step and an important opportunity to ensure coastal communities like ours get the support needed to improve outcomes for children and young people. The government has also launched the school's white paper, which includes major reforms to the system of support for children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, that is SEND, S-E-N-D. These proposals are about putting children and young people first. So I want to hear from constituents about the proposals. If you are a constituent, please email richard.quigley@mp@parliament.uk for more information about my SEND coffee morning on the 21st of March. As MP for Isle of Wight West, I shall continue to ensure that our voices are heard in Westminster. But I'll also continue to support and champion our shared sense of community. Yes, there's always more local and central government could be doing. But there is a lot we can be proud of. We can start by ensuring our young people know about the opportunities open to them. And we can prepare them for work with the right skills and training. We need to ensure islanders, especially those not in education, employment or training, NEETs and EETS, have access to work experience and the opportunity to shine. And I know it can be done because there are local businesses leading by example, including Yokogawa Marex, Rhine Metal, and Captiva Homes, proof that the island can use its uniqueness to its advantage.
Police are working closely with Island Roads. This is a report from Chief Inspector Andy MacDonald, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary. Last month, Superintendent Rob Mitchell discussed how policing antisocial behaviour on the Isle of Wight is supported by collaboration with other agencies. I wanted to use this month's column to highlight 2 other great examples of how partnerships can make life safer for those who live and work on our island. We have been working closely with Island Roads and community safety partners to more effectively be able to access CCTV imagery across the island. Officers are now able to digitally request Island Road's CCTV images when investigating crime across the island, expediting our inquiry process. Not only is this a more secure and efficient system, it means that key details regarding an incident can be more easily obtained, allowing us to tackle local crime in your area more effectively. I'm also proud that Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary are supporting the newly launched Island Road Safety Group announced recently. A partnership with Island Roads and the Isle of Wight Council, we will be working with these key partners to encourage and promote safer behaviour around highway works across the island. Whilst roadworks and traffic management may cause delays when travelling, it is important that road users follow the instructions provided to keep the staff that work across these sites, and indeed other road users, safe. An enforcement operation conducted last summer at Horsebridge Hill during private development works resulted in Isle of Wight Police taking action against 184 motorists. We look forward to working closely with partners to promote safe behaviour around these areas and reduce the antisocial behaviour that ultimately leads to delays and frustration for those that use our roads day in and day out. Partnership with local organisations allows our officers to effectively police the island, supporting victims and delivering exceptional local policing for our residents and visitors.
Who will be picking up a red card this election? Every 4 years or so, an event arrives that unites us all. No, I am not talking about the Men's Football World Cup. I am talking about the local authority elections, and likely our last before the big beastly mayor arrives in a couple of years. Like the World Cup, it comes with squad lists, questionable tactics, and the faint hope that this time things might finally improve, even if past experience suggests we'll probably end up going out on penalties. And much like the Panini sticker album, residents will soon be swapping councillors. I've got 2 Debbie Andres. I'll swap you for an Andrew Garrett. Got any spare Jordans? Though much like the real sticker album, some councillors are rarer than others, and a few you'd struggle to give away. It's that time again when residents desperately try to remember who that person was who promised to change things in our local area, and decide whether to keep them or swap them for another middle-aged white person. Phil, the lack of power Jordan, will be quaking in his fancy shoes because election time has not historically been kind to Isle of Wight council leaders. In fact, for council leaders here, it's less like a triumphant World Cup campaign and more like picking up a straight red card. We might remember David Pugh and his dramatic exit in 2013, losing his seat to Richard Priest, and not before causing absolute havoc with a school reorganization and selling off buildings like Ryde Town Hall and Ventnor Winter Gardens. Then there was Jonathan Bacon. To be fair, he stepped down a few months before 2017 election. Perhaps he could see what was coming. I was in Medina Leisure Centre for the count during those years, and it was always a wild night. I highly recommend getting a front seat for all the election night drama. Then came Dave Stewart, the Tory ex-policeman who saw us through COVID and the immediate post-Brexit chaos. In 2021, he lost his seat to Claire Critchison. So the question becomes, will Councillor Gordon be the next victim of the curse of the council leader. He came into the last election by putting his face on the side of the crumbling Ride Theatre with a promise for its revival, something that was yet to materialize. But if he were to fall, who on earth would replace him? Self-declared patriots shimmied down from hanging St. George flags on lampposts and made their way to see their mate Nige as he spread his usual mix of grievance and division to some angry islanders and a few horses at Gigi's. I gave that one a miss and stayed home sipping a strawberry milkshake. Besides, will the Tory retirement home, that is reform, really have much chance here? In some places, they've already won power. Councillors have managed to fall out, quit or get suspended before the council tea urn has been warmed up. Less a disciplined team and more a dressing room row before kick-off. Maybe the swing goes to the left and the Greens could be the answer. They won the Gorton and Denton by-election, but it was a brutal campaign and the political landscape down here is very much different. Fans of the Green stuff might see this as a joyful liberal policy, but too often Green can translate into good old-fashioned NIMBYism. When the island desperately needs more housing and investment, are they really the solution? The usual big two, the Conservatives and Labour, seem to have burned themselves so badly with the electorate. It's hard to see either of them sweeping back into power anytime soon. So do we end up where we usually do, with a rainbow collection of independents, budging together a plan? Probably. It's practically an Alawite tradition. By the time polling day arrives, islanders will step up to the ballot box like it's a penalty shootout. A random kick in the dark, not really knowing where it will land. Election history talk. A public talk is to take place on the rotten and pocket boroughs of the Isle of Wight. It will be hosted by St. Helens Historical Society, and the talk will be given by the genealogist, historian, and writer Janice Heppenstall. Janice will talk about elections prior to the Reform Act of 1832, when only 3 places on the island returned MPs, and the system for electing them was not what could be described as free and fair. The talk is at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, 19th March, at the Community Centre on Guildford Road, and all are welcome. Entrance is free to members, or £3 cash to non-members. There will be refreshments, raffle, and the opportunity to join the society.
On Sunday the 29th of March, Haydn's The Creation with the Isle of Wight Cantata Choir is on at 7:30 at Medina Theatre, Fairley Road. The Isle of Wight Cantata Choir with the Isle of Wight Symphony Orchestra and professional soloists perform Haydn's masterpiece, The Creation, at No. 1 Leisure, Medina Theatre, Fairley Road, Newport. And you can get more information from medina.theatre@iow.gov.uk or phone 823884. Tuesday the 31st of March, The Zoo That Comes to You, and this is at 2 o'clock at Key Arts in C Street, Newport. And it's a performance of live puppetry, music and memorable characters. And tickets are £10.50 to £13.50. And on Saturday the 4th of April the Aspire Duck Race is at 12 o'clock. I think entrance is £1, and the annual Aspire Duck Race is in Shide, Newport. And for more information, you can phone 077 97 94 103.
Folk singer to perform at bookshop. An acclaimed folk singer is set to perform at a bookshop. Johnny Campbell will deliver a special live performance at Medina Bookshop Cows on Wednesday the 18th of March at 7 p.m. Known for his traditional folk sound, Campbell's work draws heavily on from the landscapes and histories of northern England. A high point of Campbell's recent work has been his unique project of recording songs on some of Britain's highest peaks. Carrying his recording equipment to remote summits, he captures performances in the very environments that shaped the stories behind them. Campbell is also a writer for Country Walking magazine, where he explores the cultural and historical importance of the footpaths he journeys along. His music reflects many of the themes he writes about, providing his songs with a strong sense of movement, journey, and place.
Now, Shanklin Theatre is going to present the Great British Bake Off musical on April the 2nd to April the 5th. Adults £23, children £19. And the box office number is 01983 868 000.
The best value day out this Easter, the Isle of Wight Spring Art and Garden Fair, on Good Friday and Easter Saturday, the 3rd and 4th of April, at Northwood House, Ward Avenue, Cows, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. And Shanklin Theatre, 30th of April to 3rd of May. Chitty Bang Bang.
And now we have a few letters. Mine, I think, are to the Observer. Colourful displays but hidden hazards. And this is from an L. Jones in Newport. Dear Editor, as you walk through island towns, it is impossible to ignore the increase of phone shops with window displays packed full of colourful disposable vapes. But are these premises ticking time bombs waiting to ignite? We need only look at the recent tragedy in Glasgow for a sobering example. A vape shop in the city centre caught fire over the weekend, resulting in the destruction of several listed buildings. Early reports link the intensity of the blaze to the vast quantity of lithium batteries stored inside. Lithium fires are notoriously difficult to suppress. Dousing them with water can often prove ineffective or even dangerous. I was also alarmed to discover the lack of oversight on who can trade in these products. Remarkably, no specific licence is required to sell vapes, despite them containing nicotine, a highly addictive substance. I can only hope that these companies have the insurance required should a similar disaster strike our island. Until then, we have high streets that feel increasingly volatile.
We want our nation back from Labour. From P. Stannard of Newport. Dear Editor, it has been revealed that the government has labelled the Union and St. George's flags tool of hate. The Prime Minister spent several months telling us his father was a tool maker, and the tool of hate he produced has been in number 10 ever since. The government has repeatedly proven they are incapable of running a Bath, let alone a country, and their traitorous invertebrate of a leader needs to read the writing on the wall and call a general election. Labour is destroying the UK, and we want our nation back. Where is our Navy? From Mrs. Sorat of East Cows. Dear editor, I was horrified when I heard that we could not send a warship to the Middle East at the weekend to protect our bases, such as Cyprus. HMS Dragon has only just left Portsmouth and will not arrive until next week. Our aircraft carriers are the only other naval warships considered to be able to be sent. When I worked in Portsmouth in the 60s and 70s, we had many warships in Portsmouth Harbour. And when the Falklands War started in the early 80s, we sent loads of ships down to the South Atlantic. When I looked up how many Royal Marines we have and the number of our Navy personnel, it seemed to go down by 2,000 a year. What are the government going to do? We used to have the best Navy in the world. Now we have the worst. Worried.
A small cost, but a big debate. And this is from Ewan Jehu in Topland. Dear editor, I just wanted to provide a little context to accompany your article titled Unfunded Asylum Costs Must Be Met by Council. Isle of Wight Observer, March the 6th. Isle of Wight Council funded spending on support for people seeking asylum in 2025 to 26 accounts for just over 0.29% of the council's core spending power, with 58% of the council's revenue collected through council tax and 73,078 dwellings here. This means each island household contributed just 13 pence each, not even enough to buy 1/3 of a Freddo. Oh, and each and every one of the people we have supported is an unaccompanied asylum-seeking child. Perhaps not so scandalous.
A disaster waiting to happen. A letter from David McCall of Newport. Dear editor, the push to introduce electric double-decker buses on the Isle of Wight is reckless and poses a clear threat to public safety, the local road network and public funds. These vehicles are far from the green miracle often claimed. Lithium-ion batteries, which power almost all electric buses, are prone to thermal runaway. This is not a theoretical risk. It produces violent fires that are extremely difficult to extinguish and can reignite hours later. UK Fire Services reported over 900 battery-related fires in 2023 alone, a 46% increase from the previous year. These fires burn hotter than diesel fires and require specialist equipment to extinguish, putting passengers, drivers, and firefighters in serious danger. Real-world incidents underline the risk. In January 2024, an electric double-decker in Wimbledon erupted flames during rush hour. Weeks later, another electric bus caught fire at a bus garage at Putney bus garage. Previous depot fires, including the 2022 Potter's Bar blaze, destroyed multiple electric buses. Operators have had to withdraw fleets for safety checks, demonstrating that these buses are inherently unreliable. The financial burden is staggering. An electric double-decker costs £400,000 to £500,000, 2 to 3 times the cost of a conventional diesel bus, yet offers no guarantee of safety. Weight is a further concern. Electric buses weigh around 19 tons. far heavier than diesel equivalents. Narrow and lightly constructed alloy-white roads risk accelerated damage, increasing maintenance costs and hazards for all road users. Introducing these buses in a small, infrastructure limited region is irresponsible. High fire risk, excessive weight, and extreme costs combine to make electric double-deckers unsuitable for the alloy-white. Authorities must urgently halt plans until independent safety and infrastructure assessments are completed. The public safety and local roads cannot be gambled on a costly and dangerous experiment.
And that's the end of this session. So it's goodbye from Lynn.
And goodbye from Gerard.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
Hello. Later, the organisation which promises the opportunity to do again the things you enjoyed before you lost your sight.
We're going axe throwing, archery.
Axe throwing?
I know. Would you like to try it, Peter? It's
No.
brilliant fun.
And another organisation, now internationally recognised, which began with one totally blind man and his wife persuading the newspapers that they were already a very big deal.
John had written to all the newspapers, and the phone started ringing, and I said, "Which department would you like?"
More about that organisation a little later. But first, a new helpline dedicated to people who have the dual disabilities of Usher's syndrome. People with Usher's have lost, to varying degrees, both sight and hearing, and often have complex needs which can't always be met by single disability organisations. In a moment, we'll be meeting someone whose congenital hearing loss has been compounded by his loss of sight. First, though, I've been talking to Nikki Morris. She's CEO of Deafblind UK, and she explained to me more about the condition.
Usher syndrome is a rare genetic condition, so it's inherited when you've got both parents who have an abnormal gene. That's what we call is a recessive gene. So in order for it to display itself, you need to have both parties passing on the gene. And then it's only in about 1 in 4 cases that the mutation will display itself. And if that's the case, it can cause hearing loss, progressive vision loss, and in some cases balance issues. There's different types of Usher syndrome. So for some children, they're born profoundly deaf. With others, they have mild to moderate hearing loss, and for others, their hearing is okay at birth but can deteriorate later. And then the vision loss is often experienced around adolescence, young adult age.
Can you just explain the need for a dedicated helpline for people with Usher's?
So often, because you're dealing with dual sensory loss, and sometimes they're happening at different times of life, the needs can present themselves at different times of life. And as we know, everybody's an individual. So it's something where we felt as charities, and I include Sense in that actually, because we worked with Sense initially to move the Usher syndrome service across to us. And now we've worked with Deafblind Scotland to provide this one helpline so that people can get that specialist support very quickly. So it's the right person at the right time, first time.
So who will staff it? I mean, will there, for example, be people who themselves have the condition and can speak and react from experience?
Yes, we do. So we have an Usher service which is led by somebody who's living themselves with Usher syndrome, and we also have a dedicated person on the helpline service who will be answering the calls who themselves has Usher syndrome. And both of them are extremely, I would say, open around knowing about their own experience, but knowing that that is their own experience. And so it's getting that real balance, which I think is really special actually, around having people that have their own lived experience, and as some people say, they get it, you know, from that own personal insight, but also understand that they're trajectory through their own pathway may be different from the person at the end of the phone. So the fact of talking to somebody else who's been through many of the things that these people might be talking about.
Well, let me bring in someone who has been through this experience, Russ Palmer. Russ, first tell me about your own form of ushers. If I can put it rather simplistically, what order did things happen to you?
In 1980, I realised there was something wrong. I kept tripping over in the dark and I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until at 21 I was diagnosed with Usher syndrome. And at that time, the diagnosis wasn't particularly detailed. So I was given a title of Usher type 1. And then over the years, I went to Usher type 2 and then Usher type 3. And now I'm back to Usher type 2. So you go through these changes.
So just to be clear about it, Russ, did you have hearing loss from birth?
I did. I was born severely deaf, which means that my whole perception of sound has been through the hearing aids. Since the age of 4.5, when I got my first hearing aids, I got used to being hard of hearing. And then when I was 21, I found I got this Usher thing. And basically they said, oh, by the time you're 50, you're going to become deaf and blind. And I thought, that's not very helpful, thank you.
No.
And that was it, and we're supposed to sort of learn to live with it.
So you had no warning beforehand that this might happen?
Not at all. But mind you, since 1980, a lot has changed. Better diagnosis, much more support nowadays. And I'm very pleased that Deafblind UK have now provided a helpline because it's desperately needed, particularly those who are living on their own and also have problems with communication within the family unit, because it's something you have to live with and learn to adapt to. Now my situation is I have 2 cochlear implants, which is like a special implanted hearing aid inside the skull. So my communication actually got better. Plus the fact I'm a very active musician, which seems a bit unusual.
I was going to ask you about that, but carry on.
Well, music's always been a part of my life. And I started playing the piano when I was 10, and then the guitar when I was 13, 14, moving on to the electronic organ when I was 14, teaching myself to play, where you have 2 manuals and bass pedals, and then the double bass to get into an orchestra. But I have to say, my first career was in computers. And I had to take early retirement at the age of 30. So what do I do now? So I've always been interested in music, so I restudied through Dartington College of Arts in Devon, and got qualified to get a music degree, and then went on to Norway, and then I'm at Rita in Finland and so on. So a whole new journey opened up, but it was through probably motivation, determination and love and support from Rita particularly, because I studied in Finland as a music therapist, which is even more difficult.
Let me bring you back to your own condition. I just wonder, what are the complications when you've perhaps been able to compensate for your deafness with your sight and then that sight begins to go?
Well, it's a tricky balancing act because you're having to constantly change. What I've found, I was using spoken language through the hearing aids, but found my vision was getting worse and worse and I couldn't lip read anymore. And then I started to use finger spelling techniques because I just couldn't follow when I take my hearing aids off in the dark. And I became cut off and in effect became more deafblind in some ways. So it's a very gradual process of changes over the years. I had about, I can't remember precise, about 10 degrees of vision when I met Rita in 91. And using touch messages was starting to develop through us as a couple because my way of communicating with Rita, the other people around me, also changed.
So what in particular has the helpline meant for you, or will it mean for you, as you cope with the dual disability?
Well, it will mean a lot of things. I know a lot of Usher people, first of all, they feel they need to have their own identity. And I think this is one of the reasons why this new helpline is being set up so that people can identify, okay, I have this condition called Usher. I can identify or relate to it, which is a very important process we go through because you never know whether you're hard of hearing, whether you're deaf or whether you're cochlear implant with a visual impairment. So that's going to make a big difference. And also, some of us, I've even suffered from mild depression because when my vision went 10 years ago, I was having to readjust again using technology. So I think having that support line is going to be a vital access, because some of us go into mental health sort of issues finding it very difficult and depressing to learn to cope. So that's an important part of being able to share our experiences with others.
Do you think, because you obviously are pretty experienced, you've been through this, do you think that the helpline is something you will actually use yourself?
I'm sure I will from time to time. There may be some issues that I have relating to maybe counselling perhaps, because one of the things I had to do myself, again, I've always pushed things on my own without much support at all. And when my mother died, I didn't realise, but I was actually grieving for two things. First, the loss of my mother, but also grieving for the loss of my vision and hearing. And I didn't realise that until I was talking to the counsellor who had no idea about deaf blindness. So I was educating her all about it. But at the same time, she said to me, well, have you ever considered perhaps you are grieving about the loss of your hearing and sight, and perhaps you've never come to terms with that? And I thought, well, that's interesting.
Nikki, if I can just come back to you, one thing to get clear, because of course there are people who are blind who develop deafness as part of the ageing process as well.
Yeah.
Would I be right in saying this isn't really for them? This is very specifically ushers.
It is. So for people presenting with that situation, we would say to call our existing helpline. This is specifically for people with Usher syndrome.
Is it up already, the helpline?
It is. We're covering it at the moment, Monday to Friday, 10 to 1. So if you want to call it, it's 01733 973 500. 01733 973 500. We have a text line because obviously for some people using a phone when they're not able to hear is they prefer text. So for people that prefer text, it's 078 00 008 088. That's a lot of zeros and a lot of eights.
Nikki Morris and Russ Palmer, thank you both very much indeed. And now to an organisation for visually impaired people, which I must be honest is new to me, so may well be to other blind and partially sighted listeners. It's called iMatter, and much of its activity takes place online, although another major part of its offer is visits to a whole range of events, exhibitions, theatres, places of historical interest. They have an animated short film coming out next week, and the aim is to show, not tell, people how it feels to be blind. But someone who can tell you far more about the organisation than I can is Susie Simons, iMatter's founder and coordinator. So Susie, first of all, I mean, who exactly is iMatter for?
Well, iMatter is for anyone over the age of 18 living with any visual impairment.
And why did you start it? Because it's quite a busy sector, there's quite a lot of stuff around. What gap were you trying to fill?
I worked with the RNIB as a volunteer for about 10 years, and I worked on the Living Well with Sight Loss course, which was when I started, run by Nick French, and we worked very closely together and took the course around London. And as I progressed, I took it out on my own, and I was looking to start a peer support group alongside it, because the organisation that started Living Well with Sight Loss was RNIB, is RNIB. We still work in partnership with them on the course. The course is brilliant. We run a 6-week programme of 2 hours a week for 6 weeks for anyone living with a visual impairment. And it's to help to encourage them to engage with all the areas that you need to engage with to be a visually impaired person who's active in the community. So it's transport, it's technology. However, there is so much tech that we run a whole week on that.
One thing I want to check out with you, because it says a very interesting thing. You say getting people to perhaps enjoy the things they thought they had lost on losing their sight. Can you expand on that idea a bit?
So it's a social inclusion charity, because I really felt when I lost my sight that lots of things were taken away, like, for instance, art. And we've got the most amazing partnership now with the Tate. We're doing, this year we started with the Hunterian Museum as well, and the London Museum, and we've got Henry Moore House and Gardens that we work with. to have private audio described tours. So it's just iMatter there, and they describe the exhibits, and we also get touch items to play with, so that it really brings it alive. So you're not just being described a picture, you're feeling it, you're almost experiencing what the artist wanted you to learn all about their art. And my volunteer sighted guide, so everybody on an outing gets a volunteer sighted guide, and some of them have said that they don't like doing art now without me because they get it all explained to them when they're there, and then we have a reflection time at the end to just talk about it and to really make sure that we've grasped everything we needed to get.
But does that mean that it is mainly for people who have experienced sight loss? Of course, there are people who haven't lost their sight because they never had it. Does that mean that you are sort of basically for people who have literally lost sight?
No, not at all. So I think one of the things that I feel is that people aren't allowed to have that feeling of loss if you're born blind. And we've given people the opportunity to actually be able to talk about it. Their life would have been very different. And yes, they have managed to learn all the things that the people who are just becoming visually impaired are trying to learn, and they're all very proficient. But that doesn't mean that in some way they were also grieving the life that they would have wanted to have if they'd had it. And that doesn't mean that we're all boo-hooing away. We are we're called the Fun charity. But I just feel it's really important to acknowledge that if you're born without something, it doesn't mean you don't miss it.
Interesting thought. We'll get some interesting reaction on that, I think. Give me a bit more of an idea of the range of activities you offer, because I've mentioned a few, but it's more than that, isn't it? I was quite impressed by how many things you're doing.
We probably have about between 40 and 50 actual in-person outings. So we have an annual sports day where we get to try new VI sports. So this year we're doing showdown, touch rugby, baseball, football and tennis for the day. And you get to try all of those sports, which is great fun. We're climbing the O2 again. That's the second time. We're going to loads of musicals. That is the most popular. We do holidays. So we did Sicily last year and the year before. And this year we're going to Naples, and we're going to a PGL holiday centre in August for an activity holiday where we go axe throwing, archery.
Axe throwing?
I know. Would you like to try it, Peter?
Well,
yeah,
no.
It's brilliant fun. No, not your thing. What about archery?
Oh, wouldn't mind a go at that.
It's great fun. It gives people the opportunity to try things that they've never done before or have done before and want to do it again.
So, Susie, how do people join iMatter? Is there a membership?
There is now a membership. We started it this year. It's £15 from April 26 till March 27. We have almost 500 members, and you can just join on our website, which is imatter.org.uk. And you can also sign up there if you would like to be a volunteer, because we always need new volunteers as well.
Susie Simons, thanks very much. Finally today, and my apologies that we give a belated farewell to Lady Jean Wilson, who, along with her late husband Sir John, was the driving force behind what became the Royal Commonwealth Society for the Blind, which brought about a revolution in the global south to the way in which blind people were regarded and to the prevention of some of the causes of blindness, like, for instance, river blindness, which were endemic in parts of Africa. Sir John, who died in 1999, and Lady Jean were a team. She was asked not long before her death if she and Sir John had realised just how big their fledgling organisation would become.
John did. He said
that it was going to be
one day this will be worldwide, internationally known.
And so it is. Now known as Sight Savers, it continues its work in more than 30 low and middle income countries across Africa and Asia, continuing the mission to end avoidable blindness, treat and eliminate neglected tropical diseases, and promote equality of opportunity for people with disabilities. A fond farewell to Lady Jean Wilson, who died recently, aged 103. That's it for today. We're always keen to hear from you, so do email us intouch@bbc.co.uk or leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter Wight, and producer Beth Hemmings, goodbye.
Scaffolding and skips news. Week commencing 16th of March 2026. Ride area. James House, Church Lane. 141 High Street. Flat 2, 15 George Street and 95 George Street. And ride area skips 63 Swanmore Road and 31 Daniel Street.
Cowes and East Cowes area. The Portland Inn, Worsley Road, Gurnard. Number 1 and July Cottage, Bowes Hill. 72D High Street. Cowes area skips. 18 Albert Street. 24 Love Lane.
Ventnor area, Old Town Hall Court, Albert Street. And Ventnor Youth Centre, Victoria Street.
Sundown area, 52 Fitzroy Street. The Bayshore Hotel, Esplanade. Alverstone Farmhouse, Main Road, Alverstone. Napoleon Landing, Esplanade.
Sandown area skips 29 Alfred Road, Lake. And Shanklin area, Copper Kettle, 29 High Street.